Sorry it's been so long since we've last talked, but we have been busier than cats trying to cover crap on concrete around this joint. Ain't that right, Chris?
Yep.
So we're getting ready to go for another weekend here. Adam is currently out here with the 70, getting it ready to go. Yeah, if anybody hasn't been following our Facebook, we have decided, probably against our better judgment, to restore that thing. That's right, we're gonna rebuild the 5. Yay! Chris is overwhelmed with excitement. We'll get to what he's doing here in a minute. First, we'll start with the tube sheets. Anyway, as you can see, we got all the tubes out of it finally. I'm not going to go inside the barrel because the barrel's not clean yet. But we've done some pretty intensive investigation of the tube sheet here, especially on this end, looking for star cracking because, well, we decided that we were going to do this. When we first started working with it, I had everybody and their dog from all over the country saying, well, you're going to have to scrap that tube sheet because it's going to be star cracked from the way those tubes were put in, because there's other locomotives that it was done that way, and well, that's because it was that way on one, it's going to be that way on all. And we have yet to find any cracking in the tube sheet. There's a couple of places where I'm suspecting that it's getting ready to start, like that one there, and over here on this side especially. But for the most part, the tube sheet is in real good shape. So the next step is we're going to UT it, start cleaning these holes up from where the tubes were in it, and go from there. I don't know how well it comes up on the camera, but you see that? That's boiler scale. That's why you're supposed to roll the tubes on either side, because what happens is water gets in between the tube and the sheet and it starts to scale up. And that is how the cracks start. So one of the things that people have always exclaimed, oh God, oh God, oh God, you can't run or you can't do anything on this engine. The dynamo's starting. I wonder why he's starting the dynamo.
Checking the valve probably.
Illumination, bright headlight. We had to put a new dynamo on that thing last week, so that's cool. Anyway, right there, you see that? That's pad welding, and there is a lot of it on this boiler. There's some there, there's some around that washout plug, there's some around this here stud, there's a little bit back here, but the big chunk, oh, the part that really freaks everybody out, is right up underneath the front sand dome there. There's a pretty good sized area of it, and there's a pretty good size, I'm not going to crawl up there to show you, but there's brace rivets up there that hold our braces for our front tube sheet, and they're wasted away pretty good. So we already know we're going to be doing a bunch of rivets. We're probably going to be doing that, but right now what we're doing is we're documenting all the pad welding. And part of what we need to do is we're going to come in and we're going to take a carbon sample off of this barrel course and this barrel course to ascertain what the carbon content is. If the carbon content's good, we're going to come in and we're going to x-ray this whole area to make sure that when they did that, it didn't mess with the seam at all. Because even though that work was done by a certified boiler guy, no, Jack did not do this work. A guy named Jim Hazen did this work. He did that up there, that there, that there, and that back there. It is documented. I'm more than willing to bet that he did not do any preheat, post-heat, stress relieving in this area. So doing this up against that seam, what it can do is it can put a lot of stress on these rivets right here. And it can actually make the seam move around, and it can compromise the structural integrity of that little part of the boiler. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in there and we're going to make sure that nothing happened. And the best way to do that is by x-raying that spot and looking for cracks and looking for broken rivets. We're going to do that there, we're going to do that up there, and then there's another spot up here on top of the boiler that we're going to go look at next. And that was the area of the boiler that took the locomotive out of service. So we are up here on top of the boiler. This area here is known as the wrapper sheet because it wraps around the firebox. And one of the things that we first noticed is that from about here over to right over there Every one of the rivets has got a seal weld around the head, which indicates that the seam was leaking at one point in time. And the thing that took the engine out of service was that they were shutting her down, and they started hearing and seeing steam come out from underneath the stand dome regularly. And so they jumped to the conclusion, well, there's a crack. So apparently Jack opened this all up, and what I'm assuming is he did that right there. See it? I'm clinging on for dear life. You'll see some weld going in between two rivets to another rivet. So what I'm assuming is, going off of testimony, is that there is a crack that came off of that rivet and came out to the end of this, the end of the seam here. And what he did is he V'd it out, he welded it up, and then he seal welded around the rivet. And somebody somewhere took offense to that and said that's not the way you're supposed to do that, which I think that there is room for argument in there. I'm not going to go defending Jack and saying that was the right way of doing it, and I'm not going to go saying that condemning the guy was the right course. Obviously it quit leaking, so, well, who knows. I think that the boiler could have we probably could have got her all the way out to 2014. So the next step is we're going to spend some serious money, and we're going to bring in radiology, and we're going to x-ray from here all the way over to the other side, from basically the back of the steam dome all the way up to the seam. And we are going to radiology is going to tell us if there's a crack and where it's at. When we did the dye pen test, the only thing that we could find that could have been a leak is there's a crown stay right over there that looks like it doesn't have a very good seal all the way around the head, because the dye got in there and it stayed in there. Anyway, so that's what we're going to be doing. We got a lot of investigative work to do up here, but it's all fixable. One of the things that we are severely looking at doing is that we're going to look at coming down to right about here, going back on the other side of the braces, coming back up and around, and eliminating all of that with a riveted patch. Do new rivets, do a patch, full pin weld all the way around, and just getting rid of that area so that we never have to question that crap again. Because, well, this up here is where everybody has their problems, and they get all weirded out, and they all, oh my god, this is the engine was labeled with caustic embrittlement, and so far we have yet to find any source of caustic embrittlement. As a matter of fact, that wrapper sheet has been tested before, and the carbon content was lower than 0.25. And when you're lower than 0.25, you're into some really good and healthy steel. There is some pitting on the steam dome. It's not bad. For what we're looking at doing with the engine, we're not going to run it at 200 psi, which is what the boiler was built to. We're going to run it at 180. We're derating the boiler right off the bat, because when the engine was running here, it never ran at 200 psi. So we're hoping that that's going to give us a little bit of leeway, especially with some of the pitting areas that we have, because the boiler is still over 5/8 of an inch thick on all the UT readings that we have taken. So that covers basically all the boiler. There's good tube sheets in it so far. The firebox doesn't have any real problem areas that we can see with the naked eye. We'll know more when we get inside the boiler and clean the barrel out and get the crown sheet really good and clean. And we can UT it and see if there's any thin spots, see if there's any areas that we're going to have to patch. But we know when we dig into the boiler aspect of the rebuild project, we are going to be doing a couple of patches, and one of them is going to be right here. I'm very certain we are going to be doing a wrapper sheet patch on this locomotive. If not, those rivets are going bye-bye and new rivets are getting put in. But being as there was a crack there and all this welding happened without any preheat and stress relief, I'd be more than willing to bet that little area right there is going to crack and continue to crack because of that. Long-term consequences of not knowing welding procedure. As well as you got pad welding there. You got something going on there. I don't know what the hell it is. You got seal welded rivet there, seal welded rivet there. You know, you go back in there and you open that up, well, it allows you to get in there to buck rivets on those braces. So if you're going to do all this work, you might as well do it and do it right. And that's what we're planning on doing. And we're going to look at what's going on here because somebody did some welding a long time ago right there, and then they ground it all off to try to hide it. So is there cracking going on here? Is there pitting going on there? We really don't know. But again, it's an easy area to work at doing a patch if we really wanted to. It's right. I mean, you can buck these rivets real easy inside the firebox. You can buck these brace rivets real easy inside the firebox. A lot of these rivets have some serious wastage going on, and you know, rivets are rivets. They're not that hard. It's a couple weeks of riveting on this boiler and yay. Okay, down the running. So we had a pleasant surprise in the fact that we took the heads off of everything and we started doing some exploratory surgery with some measurements and everything. And what did we find?
She meant better than one engine on the road today.
Uh-huh. Factory fresh. The cylinders are round. And there's brand new rings in the valves. And there's brand new rings in the pistons. But because the locomotive's been moved around so much without lubrication, the piston rings are broke.
So you can do piston rings.
Yay.
But just piston rings.
Yeah. Piston rings are easy compared to the rest of it. So that being said, that saves us a lot of time. And it saves us a lot in the project budget because now we don't have to go. We were all, because of the she's clapped out, we were all expecting to have to line bore cylinders, line bore the valves, go through the valves, and all that monkey business. And we don't have to touch any of that except for pop the pistons out, put rings on it. Well, we got to pop the pistons out anyway to tram her out and set up the running gear. So that's that. The other good news is that the National Railroad Historical Society, better known as the NRHS, has gifted us with a $10,000 grant to buy materials for the running gear. So with that money, we plan on dropping the drivers out from underneath her, taking the trucks out, and completely and totally going through all that. But the big thing we're waiting on the most is getting enough money raised up to put tires on it, because these things are toasted. For folks that don't know what tires are, because Facebook has shown that not many people know that steam locomotives have tires on them. You have your driver center right here. And that white thing that's painted white, that is a big steel ring. It's a tire. It's fitted on there. You heat it up, it falls off. You heat the new one up, you put it on, and then it shrink fits to the driving center. We need new ones of those, and them things ain't cheap.
No.
I think we're figuring about $60,000 to do the entire engine. And that's 8 drivers and 4 trailing truck tires. Even though the lead and trail truck, this one's really good. That tire is really nice. The other one's got a pizza cutter flange on it. Now the other one's got a pizza cutter flange on it. The other one's a good flange, and this one's the pizza cutter flange. So we're gonna have to, we might be able to skim cut that one and make it real pretty, and skim cut the other one to make it match. Might be able to get away with that on the back end, but we're planning on doing all of it.
Make her fresh.
Yep, because we want a locomotive that's not going to go and give us any trouble for the next. Bethan figured it out on paper. If we can start running the way that we want to run and it proves profitable and we're able to do it, we are going to be doing 1472s every 8 years, if not sooner. Because we will reach 1,472 operating days inside of the 15-year mark.
Neat.
Yeah. We're going to get really good at boilers, man. Might have to start building new ones. So, anyway, we're going to drop the drivers out from underneath of it. What Chris is working on right now is we have some junk axles and wheel sets laying around. We got 2 roller bearing ones out there, and then we got one he's already finished out here and one here. We are modifying these to where there's a journal surface on the inside, and we're going to cut the wheel back just a little bit to allow it to fit in the frame. And we're going to make Fox driving boxes and Fox trucks. And so we're going to have one of these axles is going to be set where a driver used to be. So you're going to have a axle here, where number 2 is, an axle back there where number 4 is, and then an axle underneath the back of the locomotive for support, and then there's going to be an axle up here on the front of the locomotive for support. And the reason why we're doing that is, well,
we're going to need the pit sometime.
So we're going to need the pit. So we can't have the 5. We can't have the 5 immobile. It has to be able to roll. And I really don't want to just roll it outside, jack it up, and then set it down on blocks and do all the work, because I really hate leaving locomotives outside in Washington. Why? Because it rains. So I don't want the project to be outside getting all rusty and all that, even though whatever the hell they painted it in primer is not coming off. So that's what we're doing there. He's making fake drivers to sit underneath it so it'll roll while we're doing all the driving box work. We got the money, like I said, in the grant to do the driving boxes in-house, rod brasses in-house, and go through the crossheads. We are going to have to pay out of pocket probably for the piston rings, and we have to pay out of pocket for the tires. So we need to raise $60,000 for tires. If you want to donate to the 5 and throw a $5 bill at it or more, go to the link down below, which will take you to the locomotive's GoFundMe page, and throw that money at us. Because, well, if we have to dig into our profits to pay for the locomotive, there's other things that we don't get to do, like open up more railroad and put more cars into service. And the 5 was something that when we started this whole entire thing, we did not anticipate in our budget this year going after actually trying to rebuild it. So, and here's the engine's Vanderbilt tender. And folks are probably going, well, if you're going to restore it, why are you putting the Vanderbilt back behind it? We are currently trying to get a grant to help pay for a bulk of the locomotive's rebuild. And in that grant, we have it written that we are rebuilding the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad number 5. And that isn't because we're trying to erase history by any means. This locomotive is more known as being the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad number 5, and it has been in tourist service more in its life than it ever has been working for a logging railroad or a port. And the 70's coming up close on that too. And that's the thing about these things. They have been steam locomotives in the United States. Most of them have actually been in tourist service more than they were in actual freight revenue service. So we are restoring the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad number 5, not the Port of Grays Harbor number 5, and not the Carlson and Coast Railroad number 5. Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad number 5, simply because in the pages of history, that is what it is most known for. That being said, this tender is the 5's tender. Now, we have talked about trying to go out and get an actual porter tender for it, but that porter tender needs a lot of work. We've talked about putting something that's more appropriate of what the locomotive would have had behind it, but then we start getting into what are we building? We are building a locomotive for a plan that we have, and that plan hinges around capacity of water and capacity of fuel, and this tender fits that bill very well. And it's here. Other than the trucks, it is not in that bad a shape. We've already looked in it. It needs some boards up there. It needs one baffle fixed, and it needs the oil bunker secured a little bit better. And then we just need to jack it up, roll it out from all the trucks out from underneath of it, go through it, put some new wheel sets in it, and the tender is cherry and ready to go. So, like, subscribe, throw a $5 bill at the 5, and we will bring you along as we continue to work on it and rebuild the railroad for all it's worth. Say bye to our people, Adam. Wave bye, Chris.